Hey, what's up, brother? I got the plant master in the building.
What's going on? What's going
I'm
on?
good, man. Thanks for taking out the time to, spread some knowledge.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't want to mess up your name. I know you have
hmm
the 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 I at the end.
hmm
So what is it, Perí?
Perry. Yep.
So, but do
Perry.
you put emphasis at the end of the I?
Nah, just Perry.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But you can
Is
say Perry if you like. That's my actual name is Perry, but I spell
okay.
it Peri because it's like the rebirth of who I was and who I actually am now. So
Yeah, yeah. I definitely want to get into that too. Your past life, the Perry with the two R's and the Y. I definitely want to get into that. Um, so you're a raw plant-based private chef,
yes. Yeah, that's correct.
okay, by trade, and that's what you
Yep.
do right now.
hmm
And so let's just get into it. So Perry, the plant master. Where did the name come from?
Plant master. Okay. So before I became plant based, I was into the barbecue business. I was a barbecue pit master. Is that what they would call them? As pit
Mm,
masters or pit boys? But after about 4 or 5 years of being in the barbecue industry and having my own food truck business and catering business, which were both very successful at the time and still growing, I started to run into some health issues, which then led me to experiment with the plant-based lifestyle. And as I continued along that journey, I started to heal a lot of the ailments that I had picked up and were experiencing during the times that I was eating some things that were causing some imbalances within my body. And so when I went from the pit master and then kind of went through this healing and transition, both in healing some issues that popped up with some hemorrhoids, which was a precursor for something that was, a little bit deeper, a little bit under surface. It's like deeper in my digestive tract. And uh, there was one day I was at work. I was working in a factory at the time in production, and one day I had noticed that I always had these hemorrhoids, but I guess when you get older, and at the time I was probably like 34, 35, you start asking parents and friends, and they're like, that's kind of just what happens when you get older. That's pretty much what they chalk up to, most of anything that goes wrong is just like, this is what happens when you get old. Imagine when you get 60 years old, when you're my age, it's like, damn,
they blame it on age.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so, as I was going through some of those issues, I learned a lot about the body and about the mind and what types of fuels the body actually needed and wants, contrary to what we've been told in the social construct under the guise of health, but it was really just pushing an agenda for consumerism
Yeah.
um, and making money on the back end of that. But and I'm not trying to down doctors or whatever it is, but I just say that it's up to us to have, you know, some discernment, not to just take, everything for face value, to go and research for ourselves. And that's basically what I did. Even before I came to the knowledge I had now, I was always asking questions. And so after this had happened to me, obviously I started to research because I didn't want to die. One. The other is that when they went in, I had a colonoscopy after I'd had this issue with my hemorrhoids. And actually, what made me go to the doctor is that I was at work one day and I had this excruciating pain. I had to go use the bathroom number two. And this excruciating pain came along with that feeling of wanting to go to the bathroom. So obviously, the red flags were up, and I was concerned about, what was going on. So I went to the bathroom, went to do the do, and so a lot of blood came out, and basically was like one of my worst nightmares. It's like the most excruciating pain, the most blood I've ever seen, come out of the wrong way, So it's like, I had like ran it in my mind before of like, what this would look like, just sheerly off of the fear of my family's past issues. You go to the doctor and they tell you all these histories that your family had and da 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 da. So I'm like, am I next in line for whatever's coming for me at this young of an age? So uh, I just kind of just started going into the plant based thing, and then when I fully transitioned, and became who I am today. I just went from pit master to plant master, and so I kind of made that as part of my story, which it is, of going from a life full of like death and inviting a lot more life into my life. So thriving from that as well.
Yeah, you definitely talk a lot about that. Like you put a lot of spiritual posts and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously, when you're changing your lifestyle, whether it's with food or spirituality, it's all connected no matter what. But
Mm-hmm.
let's go back to your upbringing. You said, the family history. Did your parents have any health issues? Were they overweight?
There were, even at a young age, my mom was always the health person in the, she always watched what she eat, exercise. So there were times that she would get, a little overweight, but she would put it in check pretty quickly because she was just like health minded and conscious about her health because she understood that, she didn't want to go through the same things that her mother or her, ancestry did on down her line. But on my dad, dad's side, we were food people. Not to say that my mom's wasn't either, but my dad's side, we were really like food people. Like it was, we got down, we got together. Even as a family, we got down every rising. We got up, we ate dinner as a family, ate breakfast as a family. A lot of the family centered activities happened around food, which most of it, anybody within the social construct we live in today
Yeah.
gets around food. You know what I'm saying? That's the common ground between all of man is food. And um, so growing up in that environment and being a part of a family that was culinary skills were pretty high, whether it be self-taught coming from the old school or even owning restaurant and experience. I have family that had done both, and so naturally it kind of just runs in my blood to want to do something with food, and that's what I took a liking to as even at a young age. And so as I grew up, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and so I wanted to pursue food because I wanted to help people. That was my intention going into it, and wanting to bring happiness to people. Food is a staple, man. I mean, it's one of the probably biggest keys in our life as far as consumption, and also what we use for our emotional avenues as well. Uh, whether that be taught or just being in the society, we are emotional eaters. Whether we're happy, we eat, whether we're sad, we eat. There's always a celebration to be had around food.
When you're
And so I wanted
bored.
to be a part of that. Right, right. When you're bored, and so I wanted to be a part of that. But as I quickly saw, figured out that what we put in our bodies actually does matter, and it will, it caught up to me fairly early in my life. But eventually, even in older ages, some people don't have issues until older age. But I don't look at it as something that it was evil that happened to me. I actually look at it as something that was probably the greatest thing that happened in my life, because if that didn't happen, the growth and the I guess I could say illumination within, because that's basically what it is. It's like this light up, like this light just goes off within the psyche and within the body of getting your body back to its natural functioning self, where you basically get out of the way and let it do its job. You get it to that point because the body is an intelligent machine, and as long as you put the correct things within the vehicle, like with anything we use, we know there's different things that we have to put in things we want to work in order for it to work. You can't put orange juice in the oil tank in your car, or else it'll jack up. But or vice versa. You don't want to drink oil as a human. So there's I do think there's a protocol for as a foundation for most species of human beings, and that we are starting to quickly find out that um, the things that we were sold as children or and as adults of what was good for us wasn't necessarily so.
It's all about the almighty dollar. At the end of
That's
the
right.
day, they don't really care. A lot of stuff that's in the ingredients in this country are banned in other countries.
Yeah.
Um, so talk about some of the health issues that you face. I know you said you had hemorrhoids, but what else were you
Mm-hmm.
facing? I know you were overweight and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but
Go ahead. Sorry.
can you go? You can dig into that your health
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah, so a lot of my issues stemmed from inflammation. I noticed that a lot of times I was not, I would say like fat, but mostly swollen. And I could tell even in my body when I was eating these foods. I would eat certain things and I would just feel this like, they call it the turkey neck, but it wasn't like like flat. It was just like swollen. You know what I mean? Like this puffy, like
Yeah.
retention of water retention type thing. My hands and fingers would swell, toes would swell. Um,
Wow.
and so with that inflammation, being that inflammation is basically the foundation for most all of disease, especially with the dominance within with mucus being in the body, mucus just doing what it's supposed to do, but when it's in excess within the body, it causes acidosis, which leads to disease or imbalance within the body. And so I had a lot of inflammation issues. I wore glasses at the time too. I had astigmatism. I had high blood pressure. Cholesterol was starting to shoot up, and yeah, just mostly most of the basic ailments they tell you as a person, even being a person of color. When I went to the doctor, they would always remind me, you're African of descent, so you have all these issues, and I'm just sitting there like, wow, does it feel like that most so-called African Americans have all these issues, and so as I started to dig into all these issues, it all led me back to the food we were eating and what that was introduced to us during certain periods of time of our ancestry, and how a lot of the things we're being shown to eat are unnatural within within the community of melanated people. And I'm not saying just melanated people at all. I'm talking about all people, but especially for melanated people, being that they are the highest in the disease column in the Western medicine. And so that always brought a question to my mind. And just seeing my family actually, a lot of my dad's side had a lot of colitis, a lot of stomach cancers and things like that. I had a lot of my great uncles died from either heart disease, cancer, or something with the colon cancer. And so naturally, I kind of feared that because I was going down that same road. And so that's when I really wanted to start to be the change, at least in my family's generation, because I wanted to be the one that put a stop to the generational curses that I feel like my family always talked about, but never really did anything about. They were aware of the generational curses, but weren't maybe knowledgeable in the sense of what actually causes these things, other than the devil did it to me, or like whatever it is we make excuses for not taking responsibility for our own choices and what we do with our bodies. Because although you know a lot of people think there are outside factors that have to do with a lot of our health, but we don't help it by exasperating the health issues with what we're eating. And that goes to really just knowledge and going out and researching, which is also not very popular, but researching or going out even on the internet, where you can find videos now where you don't have to read there. I mean, it's flooded with information, even on IG, like the podcast like we're doing now, and
Yep.
countless others.
Mhm.
And to really do the research, because I have this formula where it's like studying brings knowledge, knowledge brings how's it go, study brings knowledge, knowledge brings awareness, awareness brings confidence, and then confidence leads to action, and then action leads to results. And that's the way that I actually did it, is that I wasn't a learned person. In order for me to be learned on something, I had to go in and dig for it for myself. And I knew that I could ask people questions, but why would I ask questions when I can go straight to the source myself? Because that's what I'm going to do anyway, right?
Yeah.
So that's even what I tell other people. Don't take my word for what I say. Go back up or go find receipts for the things that I say to make sure what I'm saying is checking out. But the one thing about knowledge that's important is, it's one thing to know something, but to actually follow through and do it is what makes knowledge so valuable. It's not just enough to know what this knowledge does. You can know all the knowledge in the world, know all the esoteric information, know all, but if none of it is put to practice, is futile. And I believe that being a student now and a teacher, but mostly a student, that I've come to learn through self-analysis and research within my own self and body, and that I just experimented with myself. I tried different things, small changes at first. The small changes I felt were creating a big enough result for me to continue the path of living a plant-based life. Because, like I said, I was in the barbecue business. That's bad for barbecue. That's bad for business. going vegan or plant-based. But in that change, there's a lot of good things that happen because we play many characters within our life, and within those characters, we tell our own story and have our own journey and write our own book. And I just think it's amazing to see all of these people in this short amount of time, at least within the 3 years that I've come to the knowledges that I have of how the body operates, how healing can take place within the body without outside assistance, that it just takes somebody being willing to want to heal themselves and to dig in and really be serious about it. And, to hear all these people coming out in this time and age is really encouraging, because when I first started, there weren't many people out there that were, talking like the way I talk or eating the way I ate. Not to say that there weren't people before me, but it was just, 3 years ago, it was
Yeah.
totally different than what it is,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, it definitely
But
blew
yeah,
up a whole lot. It blew up a
yeah,
whole lot. Now you mentioned when about business, from being a pit master to a plant master. How was that transition? Was it scary? Were you worried that your finances weren't going to be in order? Like, what was that like?
yeah. It was scary, but it also happened like at this critical time when we call it, I guess with the scamdemic or whatever they want to call it. Um, right as that happened is right when everything started to click for me. I actually went plant based and started having these issues with October, about the first week of October of 2019. So it was literally right before everything went crazy. So the opportunity for me to escape was actually provided with the chaos that was provided with what was going on with all that. So while the world was going crazy, I was actually growing and ascending. While everybody was fearing, I was healing.
Hmm.
And so I took the opportunity for whatever was happening in the world to close myself off from my family, my whole world that I knew of in the what I call my old world, to separate myself, go to a place of solitude, and really dig in and do the self work. And I got, of course, my family thought I went off the deep end. I quit my job of 19 years. I was at the factory that I was talking about earlier, manufacturing company I worked for in Virginia for 19 years. I started when I was like 20 years old.
Wow.
So I quit right as that happened. And around that time, I took advantage of some of the things that I guess the government was offering as far as like payouts, because I had a business at the time. And so this business actually, okay, so during said event, um, they had what was called the what was it called? The act that they passed in January, right before the CARES Act. And when they did the CARES Act, I guess that opened up for like the PPP loans and all that stuff. But during that year, go ahead.
Now I would say
Sorry.
stimulus checks.
Yeah, the stimulus checks.
Yeah.
And so during that time, a lot of people didn't know that I had this rule, but I had a bird in my ear. My accountant was a really good accountant, and we were like both on the same plane of intellect and thinking of what was going on. We were in agreement with what was going on, and he was like, "Man, I would pull your retirement out, and if you decide to quit your job, just pull your retirement out, because during this year and this year only, you can take your retirement out without penalty.
Wow.
You'd only have to pay taxes." So a little, that little voice in my ear said, "Do it." And then when I did that, I knew that I would have to quit the barbecue truck, because I actually went plant based as I was still running the truck, but then had the epiphany of, oh, I'm feeding people the same thing I was eating. It was messing me up. Not that I'm trying to tell them what they can eat or not, but I'm not going to be responsible for that, because I can't live with that.
Yeah.
So I ended up giving up the food truck. I had a business partner at the time, so of course that didn't go so well. So there was a lot of decisions I made that were actually very, very painful there was a lot of fear, but there was also this liberation that came with a lot of those negative effects and emotions of I'm getting ready to set myself free, and it hurts right now, but I know that after I do this, I'm going to feel so much better, and I couldn't have been more than right, you know. Even though it felt like my whole world was falling apart, a whole nother world was being put together, and even when I thought I was losing everything, I was gaining everything. And even to this day, living a life of kind of like surrender, I would say, because I still live that type of life. I'm nomadic uh, I feel like it's in my blood to be nomadic. I mean, I've always felt that way, even when I was doing the societal things. But I'm nomadic by nature, and so I travel in my truck, and I live in my truck, and I go from place to place, making food for people, just sharing knowledge. So there's this nostalgia of where I grew up in the Christian church. Very, very mystic minded person. Not so much then as much as I am now. I think I contribute um, my upbringing into Christianity is a huge foundation for the knowledges I have now, because there's a lot of truths hidden within religion that are just shrouded in a lot of allegory and a lot of um, mysticism, you know. And once you really start breaking things down and really start to look beyond the surface, as always, into the deeper things, you start seeing there's more than just what meets the eye. So this whole journey has been really a unfolding of what I feel like is like my own personal uh, chapter in a holy book or something, you know, because we all have that. You know, our own story is a chapter within our own book, you know, and so it's very nostalgic because reading the stories about the prophets and how Christ did whatever he did and da 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 da. You know, that picture for me being an allegory for the things that I know now, but also I still believe there are some truths within even the literal sense of certain things, in that um, things play out in the physical things play out in the physical sense in a clearer form when you start learning how it plays out at the smaller,
Spiritual.
right.
Yeah.
So I call that the micro and the macro. Everything
Excuse me.
happens first on the micro or the invisible level before it happens where we can see it. And so as this unfolds, being that I'm very symbolic, very a very symbolic person, in that I love symbolism and allegories and things and stories because of the truth that are hidden within stories. I have learned to kind of do so with my own, and so it's really fun to be able to play around with words and make sense of things that weren't able to be made sense of. And I believe that the role that I'm playing within humanity today is that of one who is able to make things that are hard to grasp within the physical realm, to bring it down into the physical to a more dense state, from a spirit state, to make it more palatable, or maybe more understandable to what we would call a layman. And then turns on the light inside of them, and then it just replicates everywhere. You know, once people start freeing themselves, it's just like dominoes.
It all comes together.
Right.
Because I have a friend. She was in a situation where she was at a job, like her everything about her life was miserable. Everything was going wrong, and she finally took that leap. She did the same thing you did. She quit her job. She has her own plant business. She sells plants, and she's thriving. Everything's coming together, and then
Mm-hmm.
everything you just mentioned. I was just thinking about her. But being that you speak on spirituality, and you grew up religious, you grew up in the church.
Right. Yep.
So
Mm-hmm.
so so now you have such a deep spiritual connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it deeper now that you're putting high vibrational foods in your body? Do you have like a deeper spiritual connection now?
Absolutely. I think my connection more so of when I was religious minded was that of being emotionally tied to
Mm,
the religion. As I set myself free from the emotional effects that come with being in a religion, such as, you know, like the one like Christianity being the biggest one in America.
mm,
Um, the emotional part of that kind of blinds us to the uh, ability to be open-minded about certain things, because we have these emotional strongholds within our belief of what's being taught in said religion. And once I broke free from that, I really feel like I had a deeper connection within myself, and knowing that whatever I was being told within this religion was really about me and the creator being inside of me. And the more I got to know myself, the more I got to know the one that we would call the creator. And so, in that sense, when I put the emotional ties away, I then became more intellectually sound, which isn't so much like a huge plus because it's just intellect, it's just a knowing of something. But what came along with the intellect was the deeper knowing of how my body operates. And then once I had a foundation and a better understanding of how the body operates, I could then navigate my my world a little different. You know what I'm saying? Like, I knew why certain things happen when they pop up, or when something happens, I know how to handle it, because I believe that when we come into this world, what's been stripped of us is the knowledge of self. And everything wants us to look outside of ourself for whatever it is that ails us, whatever it is that makes us sad, whatever it is that, whatever disruption there is within the life, to look outside of us first instead of within. And anytime I heard scripture being repeated in church, I would always hear the opposite. So it would always confuse me when people would say, thinking about yourself is selfish. You have to, da 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 da, to think highly of yourself, and not the sense of being conceited, but knowing that you're a powerful being, and that, those things were like not humble within the church. So once I got over those things and really got confidence within who I am because of what I was coming to find out, my whole world changed, as our mind is what creates our reality. So as in Christianity, it says, in order to be reborn, one has to have a change of heart and a change of mind. There's a shift within the mind. And when that shift within the mind happens, I gain confidence, because, like I said before, once you become knowledgeable of something and gain the confidence of something, then you have the tools to be able to do something about it. And so once I started to do something about it and got the results that actually exceeded what I expected, there was like no stopping me. Like, once I know that what the truth is, like, there's, I'm gonna protect it, and I'm going to represent it very well,
Yeah.
the best I can. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, you had posted a quote. I'm not sure if you said it, but maybe explain the quote a little bit. Let me just read it real quick. It's called "To set the mind free, release to set the mind free is to release the gut from bondage."
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
Can you
So
explain that?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So to me, the stories and the scriptures are one of those that are both, well, not both, but there's seven interpretations. When the main ones are, uh, of course, the literal, which is the one that is actually shared amongst the common folk, which is just like the story. And then the underneath the literal or the literary understanding of scripture, you have the biological interpretation, you have the metaphysical interpretation, astrology, also physiological properties within there too. And once you start to put these pieces together, and these key pieces together, you start to find out a lot of what's being said is talked about with what happens in the body. And so when we talk about the Israelites being a group of people or a tribe belonging to a certain sect of people, the Jews, when you start to learn the symbolisms within um, what would we call it, the cult, which is a bad word in a lot of religious sects, but it basically just means what's hidden. When you start to uncover what's hidden, you start understanding that these places like Egypt and heaven are actually symbolisms for things that represent something within the body. And so if you can match the character with what it represents, you can understand what stories is being told. And so Egypt would be that which would be considered the bowels, or the place of bondage. Um, because it's what we call the hot place. Egypt's known for its hot climate or its weather, and the place in the stomach or the digestive tract or where the digestive juices is a hot place. And then it's also a place of creation, which was what we call like a kiln. Like, you know, you put the potter in the kiln and it heats up with, you know, women and the whole reproductive thing of how the womb works. That's a place of creation. And so bondage, whenever there's bondage within Egypt or the Israelites, which I call which is the feminine, masculine principle of the mind, in which when they come together and become married, they become God, and the two become one. Um, the feminine aspect would be Isis being the feminine aspect of the mind, Ra being the male aspect, and when they come together, which is a picture of enlightenment, when we combine the divine mind or the right brain comes married to the left brain, which is the masculine, which is what most people are set in, is the fight or flight, right? That's bondage. Within Scripture, it also says that bondage happened within the family of Abraham with Sarah and Hagar. And there's actually an allegory within the Bible that talks about the son born of in bondage and the son born of the free of the free woman, which was Sarah. All have to do with aspects of the mind. And so Egypt being that, which is when the Egyptians are in bondage, that means that the stomach region of the body is in bondage, that there's things aren't moving correctly. And so when there's bondage, there becomes disease, there becomes these ailments that happen within the body. And within, you know, the story of the wilderness, you know, we have these plagues, these 10 plagues and the things that plague us. And so as we learn what bondage is, and what I learned what bondage was, and I learned this through the Essenes, by the way, as I transcended within my, eating lifestyle, I was transcending within my physical growth in religion, because I went from Christianity to the Torah, then from Torah to the Essenes, and then from the Essenes, I learned that everything was really just one, all talking about the same thing, which was us and the universe. But that being the place of bondage, when you start to eat correctly, when you start to operate in a godly fashion, which is clean, right? Cleanliness is next to godliness. When you start to clean your temple being your body, because that's where God dwells. God doesn't dwell in temples made with human hands. The only temple I know of that's not made with human hands is the one that our spirit dwells within, or our breath. That bondage restricts spirit or breath, in that when one becomes packed full, or like, for a better term, for constipated, you can't eliminate. That is what makes the temple abominable. When you don't have right elimination, it causes fermentation. It causes, you know, inflammation. It causes all these things that cause all these plagues within the body. And so to set the captives free, one has to go back to the ancient ways, the way that we used to do things, you know. And so once you go back to the ancient ways, which Scripture always talks about as well, we also know Genesis 1:29, where it gives the instruction right in the front of the book, right when the foundation of earth was laid, what the expectations for humans were as far as what food was and what wasn't. And that changes throughout the Scripture, but we won't get too deep into that because there are explanations for that. And maybe we can get to that on another podcast. But I noticed that as I cleaned out and I got rid of the lust for food, because chastity has more to do with food, has just as much as it has to do with food as it has to do with sex, because sex and food are synonymous, isn't it? That it hits the brain the same way. It's instant gratification. It's that dopamine hit, right? Which is a characteristic of the left side of the brain, which is where we're trying to cast our net to the right side of the brain, or the right side of the boat, to catch the fish, right? So we have to then find the divine, or that feminine aspect within the mind. And when we do that by unlocking our gut and getting our functions in our body and our glandular functions working in the temple the way they're supposed to, resonating the way they're supposed to, the body resonates at a certain frequency that this creates health. I don't think sickness is a thing that is something that we're supposed to even experience unless we start to resonate against nature, where nature can pick up on who resonates within nature and who doesn't, and she then eliminates those threats by many different ways, disease, all different things, because as the cells in our body need to be healthy, we also are cells within the body of the grand scheme of the universe. So us being cells, we want the rest of the body to recognize us as healthy, good living cells, so we don't get flushed away when things decide they want to detox. So like I said, when things happen on a microscopical level, they happen they then affect the more the bigger picture of things. And so, as I started to clean out and learn what Christ was, that it was a substance that we call chrism, which is uh, produced within the pineal gland and the pituitary gland. It's melatonin in the pineal gland, also known as melanin, and also oxytocin in the pituitary gland. And they mix within the brain, and it's called cerebral spinal fluid that goes down. It's an electromagnetic property or fluid that goes down your spine and back up every month, and that's your Christ. And there's 33 vertebrae on your back, in your back, which is when Christ started his path or his ministry down the 33. But then Christ had to go to hell, right? Hell being the hot place, which is that of Egypt. Egypt, hell, all these places are just places that are symbolic of a place within the body, and also within the mind. And so, like we have the laws of correspondence, as above, so below. So as things happen above, they happen below, and vice versa, inside and outside. And so as the chrism or the body starts, or the temple starts to work the way it's supposed to, it then starts to create what's called that chrism substance. This is why they put the olive oil on the forehead of saints when they go up for healing, because within this fluid is a healing element that heals all ailments within the body. And that's why Christ could heal all. That's why Christ could touch somebody and heal them. Not only was the healer a healer to others, a healer is a healer unto themselves, right? Christ couldn't have done these things without first knowing how to heal himself, right? Or how the all these things work. And so as I began to clean out, that's actually when I feel like I got that awakening or remembering. I actually like to call it a remembering, because we basically just forgot who we were. It's all there. We just forgot. So as I remembered who I was, this process of remembering happened at its most potent when I was fasting, cleansing, and going back to eating correctly.
Wow.
That was a
So
lot. I know.
yeah, you know what? But I love it because you're not the first person to say that when you change your lifestyle, you had an awakening and
Mm-hmm.
you had this maybe thirst for knowledge and
Mm-hmm.
just educating self. Um, I've this is the current journey I'm on, just trying to find self and my healing journey. But
Mm-hmm.
why do you think people struggle with releasing themselves from the bondage? Why do you think they're so addicted to food and just disconnected from self?
Mm-hmm. To me, the addiction from food is a device which keeps them from having to deal with doing the work, the inner work. I think a lot of people, and I can't talk for everybody, but for the majority of people I know on this journey, and including myself, I was using food as um, a crutch to fill voids that I didn't want to deal with emotionally, because I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to deal with those things. And really, until you start to cleanse and go back to eating correctly, during the healing process is when a lot of the issues and traumas we have come into awareness. It's something that has to happen within us, because nobody else can tell us what's wrong with us. It has to come from within. That's an experience we had personally that we have to remember what caused this. And a lot of times when you start cleaning up the areas that we covered with food, it starts to unlock, like I said, those functions and bodily functions, and tissues start to, be healed. I always say that you hold your issues in your tissues. When people get massages, when people going through fasting and healing, there's emotional releases that take place, because when certain parts of the body are affected or touched in a way, in a sense that it hasn't in a long time, it brings up and arises certain things, like the dust will settle. But when you start to heal, you start to kind of break, when you dust, you know how like dust kind of comes up and it gets a little dusty until it gets clean, like all this stuff starts to come up. And as you all these things start to come up, you can start picking them out and then correcting them as you heal. And that way to, you know, becoming a, you know, back to wholeness and back to self, you're not only healing the body, but you're curing the ails that cause the body to be in affliction anyway, because at the foundation of every disease is an emotion. The food isn't really what causes the disease. It's only a substance in which was used to cope with the disease cope with a deeper or underlying problem that caused the disease. But the emotion that caused you to eat or overeat or eat poorly is what actually caused the issue. And so when you start getting into the emotional healing of things, that's when you start getting into the most permanent, most the cell regeneration process. Even within fasting, I believe that cells respond to our emotion. It's like food for them as well, because our cells are directly impacted by our outside environment and how we're taking on the outside environment.
Yep,
And so
for
as
sure.
we start to change that, our body starts to kind of go through this transformation, or like this, I don't know, like, you know, the butterfly effect, you know, where you know, start out as a caterpillar and you go into the cocoon, and then but like, it's basically that same thing. And during this whole process, at least I've noticed within my observation, that one can become a higher part of themselves by going back to the natural way that the body is supposed to operate. And that to me is through a whole foods plant-based diet. Even if people that do consume flesh and things like that, um, I personally don't, you know, tell people to eat flesh, but I know people that do, and it might work for them. But I know what I study, and I know that the body wasn't necessarily designed to eat flesh, but the only time that it was meant to eat flesh was in survival instances where there's like no other choice but to do, you know, to sustain life is to take another, you know, it's that responsibility of taking another life. But even within the community that does eat meat, we all are in agreement that the foods that we're being told to eat, that are sold in a lot of the grocery stores, aren't even actually foods, like the box foods, the processed foods, all these different things, the chemicals that they even spray our foods with, and these big plants and factories and whatnot that do these things that we don't know where our food's coming from, are tearing us up. And those are the things that I'm talking about, that are naturally harmful, and naturally the body does not recognize those things. And so um, through my studies, I came across a doctor. I think he was a doctor, but anyways, his name is Hilton Otima. You've seen me post some of his work before. His book is called Man's Higher Consciousness, and he talks about how man was never really even designed to eat food, period, and that we fell from grace when we started eating, because we were actually, the cells in our bodies, the living cells in our bodies, and the things that work in our body aren't sustained or created by food. They're all immortal cells. They all came into being through what we would call, and I hate to use the word because it's kind of like foo-foo, but it's like the more cosmic type, unseen sustenance that we get for this body and this machine. And as we eat denser and denser foods, it clogs the body up and creates a malfunction within the machine. And I'm not saying that food is bad. I'm not saying don't eat. But what I'm saying is the densities of foods that we eat are based on, basically they create the condition within the body. So the more dense the food is, the more harder it is for the body to break down. The more and often you eat those dense foods, the more the body's going to have to work harder to break those things down and store those things. And then that's when you start becoming, you know, obese, or your stomach starts sticking out, or blah 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 blah. You know, you start getting bigger. And to me, when I started to realize that, and the relief that came with eating a lighter a lighter density type food, that it began to free me completely from the addiction of food, of wanting to overeat a lot, um, the addiction to emotionally eating. And I'm not saying I've completely mastered all of this, but what I'm saying is I've come a long ways from where I was. And this journey is not one that goes to the swift, but those who are wanting to really take the time to dig in, because it does take time. It took time to get us here to this point when we have these issues pop up. So it's going to take time uh, to confront those issues. And so it's really a race of endurance and one of perseverance, because it's not all butterflies and sunshine. Because the healing process is it's scary. It's not very popular within the social construct of things. People don't want to, like you said, food is the biggest drug there is. Bump marijuana, bump cocaine, bump all those things.
For sure.
Food is the biggest drug, the most abused drug there is, probably in the world, and most definitely in America.
Yeah.
So, being that if food is our medicine, we really got to start checking what's in our medicine cabinet, right? In our fridges, in our in our spice cabinets. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, I'm really hoping people, just do like you said, just dive deep, do some research, and just
mm-hmm,
look at what's going on around you, what's in your fridge, what's going on in the
mm-hmm,
country. What you're putting in your body could be a
mm-hmm.
reflection on how you put that energy out into the universe.
Right,
You know what I'm saying? You
right. Read
mentioned
the labels.
exact.
Read labels. Start there, if
Read them
anywhere.
carefully,
Yeah, read
not
the labels
just
carefully.
not just the front of the box, the back of the
Yep.
box. If you don't
And
know
look
what,
up the words.
if you don't know, if you can't pronounce the word or you don't know what it means, just don't eat
Don't
it.
touch it.
Don't touch it. You mentioned, um, obviously, we weren't designed to be eating flesh, and more specifically, we weren't designed to be eating food. But you said
Mhm.
preferably whole foods, plant based.
Right.
But you take it even further, and you just raw whole foods,
Mm.
plant based. So
Right.
is cooked plant based foods, is that ideal? Is that something that uh
It-
you know what I'm saying? Is it something that we
yeah.
should be doing? Is it lower vibrational versus raw
Um,
foods?
I would say cooked foods are key for transition. I don't think ultimately that cooked foods are harmful, in that that's what we were raised on. And so, in order to get to the body back to a place of being where it should be, you might have to use the tactics that we brought up with. And so, I actually still felt healing when I was eating plant-based cooked meals. Um, as I progressed, like in anything, when you transition, you don't want to stay in one place for too long. Scientifically, cooked food loses its nutrients. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I know people out there saying like, cooked food's still good, da 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 da. In all actuality, for the body, when cooking food, when you cook food, it causes an acidic reaction, because heat changes the chemical properties of the food, which is called the Maillard effect, or the browning process of food, which we know fire destroys. So it kills the nutrients within the food. It kills the like you said, the vibrance, or the vibrancy, or the vibration of the food, and ultimately it takes away the hydration of the food as well. And so, as we're told that this helps break the food down to be better digested, the methods used to do that are just so happen to be detrimental for the body, because the body knows how to cook its own food, or the digestive system wouldn't be hot. Or when we say hot, it
Egypt.
heats up enough, right? It's acid. It eats the food, the stomach acid. And so that's why we call it the hot place, or the place, or the potter's house, or whatever you want to call it. Like, that's where all that happens. Um, and so within that process of just like cleaning out the gut, I can't like express enough how important elimination is. Um, Hydration is what, like, if you have clogged up pipes, or something's clogged up, there's a blockage. That's that bondage that we're talking about. And people usually use liquid Drano, right? And so there's this liquid that has to go in, and it just keeps hitting it and hitting it. And so, to me, the body wants simple aminos. It wants hydration. It wants light. It wants those biophotons that are within the food that gets from the sun, because that's basically what we are. We are sun eaters, whether it be within the skin of our body, or through foods that take in the sun. we need that sun. And whenever you put that sun to extreme heat, that is actually hotter than what the sun actually heats it up down here, is when you start to kill the food. And when I say cook things, I mean to cook it at the temperature of the sun, which would be around 118 degrees. The sun can get hotter, but you want what I call sun-kissed foods or sun-cooked foods, which are naturally cooked by the sun. And granted, we have these machineries like dehydrators and things like that took place. The real deal methods of doing things is always back in nature, and environment has to do with that as well. It also has to do with disease. I believe in terrain theory. I don't believe in germ theory. I believe that in order to really get into the body of a man, you change his environment. It's not something that I can catch from you. It's something that we all catch from subtle changes within the environment or big changes in the environment, and inviting those things within the body. And so, yeah.
You mentioned elimination, right? How often
Right.
should someone be eliminating throughout the day?
Well, if you eat 3 times a day, you should eliminate 3 times a day, right? That's what they say.
Yeah.
But we also have to go to the denseness of food. The reason we eat so dense is because that's what the body has adjusted to. Sorry, it's a little loud. The trash, cool. the food truck here decided to.
So good.
Okay, but what were we talking about again?
The elimination.
Lost my train of thought. Yeah, the elimination. Okay, the elimination part is so important because the book by Hilton Hotima that I brought up before, he has this quote or this explanation he used for the body adjusting to things that's not natural, called vital adjustment. The body in attempts to in the body's attempt to sustain life within the body, it will actually adapt to the harmful things that are being put in it. It'll try to keep sustaining itself, and it'll fight, and it'll tries to keep you alive, and so it keeps going and going and working. But over years and years of that, and not ever giving it a break, you start having issues, because then all the warning lights start coming on. Your check engine light, and around mostly around age 60 or 70, these lights start popping up in what we call old age. That really could have been handled in the beginning, but because nobody actually eliminates correctly this feces and this putrefied flesh that's been eaten over the years, because like I said, the body is not made to digest flesh. It'll take what it needs from it, which is what it wants is the simple aminos, which there's not a lot in flesh. It's mostly complex aminos, and it's not the right types of aminos the way that it's put together chemically. But it uses what it can, and it discards the rest of it as fat, or for storage. And the body not being able to break it down, it wants to utilize its energy the best, because we talk about not wanting to waste. It goes for humans. The more we waste, the more we're working. So really 3 times a day is working your body way too much, because each time you eat, whenever the digestive system is digesting, it can't heal. Like the healing modality within the body lies in the same place where digestion does. So if we keep eating without giving the body a break and not giving it the proper hydration, it can't eliminate, it can't flow correctly. And so whenever water gets stagnant, what happens? Bacteria builds up, parasites, all these different things happen when you get stagnant, nasty water. Mosquitoes start getting by it, like hanging around, and all these different things that happen. And so that's the same way that a river or ocean works within nature, the same way the body is. And so if there's bondage within the body that's restricting elimination, then there's going to be a host of problems. So that's why a lot of juice cleansing and a lot of fasting is very vital for the body, because the body is actually made to be in a state of fasting or regeneration, because we're regenerative beings. We are able to regenerate. We don't have to die at such early ages, but because of our desires and our emotional attachments to the things that actually cause disharmony within the body, we think it's normal to die at such young ages as 70 and 80, when we probably should be at least living to 140 to 200 years old.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
That to me, that is possible.
You said
Yeah.
it is possible.
So elimination to me is, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
even
agree.
within the realms of Christianity, they think of they think of me thinking that I'm crazy because people are immortal, but they believe a whole story about people that lived 300 or 400 years old. What was different back then? The type of foods they ate, maybe the environment they were getting the foods from. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
the types of food they were probably eating correctly because they were following said whatever laws there were in the Bible that. But even then, the Bible's been tampered with. We can go on about this, but to me, if you want to know the answers to whatever it is you want to know, you first have to clean yourself out, look within yourself, and I promise you, as you go through the process of elimination, ha ha ha, the process of elimination, you'll finally find yourself through all the clutter, through all the mess and the yuck, that you will slowly start to come to who you really are. And when you find out who you really are and how you work and how your body works, you can then know how everything else works because they're tied in together.
love it. All right, so let's talk about your transition from just getting into the plant based lifestyle, and then taking it even a step further to being the raw plant master. So talk about that transition.
All right. So the transition, whenever I actually started with a smoothie. It was a protein kale smoothie. My sister was like a beach body coach, and she was selling some protein shake. It was actually really good. It was like some vegan protein shake that had a lot of good stuff in it. And at the time, I was riddled with, I was eating hot wings every day, going to the pizza wing buffet every day, drinking beer after work because I was miserable at work, right? Most people, if they're honest with themselves, they're miserable at work. And that was me. And I dealt with that with eating and drinking and being married. And so a lot of the diet that I had prior to smoothie was destructive. It was a lot of I like a lot of Mexican food, which I love Mexican food. I can still eat Mexican food now. I just make it a lot better, as far as what's healthier for me. But I love Mexican food. So you could either catch me at the Mexican restaurant drinking a Dos Equis, or at the local wing and rib joint, drinking a Bud Light. One of those two. But I felt terrible. And just that smoothie and my sister getting me to drink that kale smoothie, I felt the effects of that one smoothie. And I was like, oh, man. So I was like, I might make this a habit. I'll just, drink one of these every day and see how I feel if I just like skip breakfast and just have a smoothie and not have anything but a smoothie or smoothie and some juice until lunch. So I did that for the longest time. And as I transitioned more into a plant-based lifestyle, because I was still eating a lot of chicken, a lot of eggs and cheese. Even after the colonoscopy, they told me to go more towards plants, which was surprising to me. But they told me to cut out red meat, so I cut out red meat and I still ate chicken because chicken was favorite. So once I eliminated the meat, once I started still having these complications and eliminated the meat, and knowing that the smoothie made me feel good, I felt more confident in that my body was ready to make the transition. Not only ready, but it was accepting what I was putting into it. It was actually responding better to the kale smoothie that more than the eggs and bacon that I usually had in the morning, or the bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich or whatever. And so incrementally, I went from just having the plant-based breakfast to having the lunch. So I then learned and started teaching myself how to make plant-based foods because I was used to barbecue. So I would just try like doing certain things with mushrooms is a big one, nut meats and things like that, cooked nut meats and things at that time, and started implementing that. And as my body progressively got better, it needed less and less sustenance to fuel itself. So as my eating lifestyle got lighter, so did how much I needed to input for the energy I needed. So I was getting more energy output, but with less input, which is basically what it means to be sustaining or sustaining or going away from waste, right? Because like I go back to the waste thing because we look at waste as being something that's bad. Waste in itself, I don't believe in waste and true waste just because it goes back into the earth. The only thing that I consider true waste is that of something that can't be used by nature and then can't be decomposed. And then to me, that's waste because it's something that's left over that you can't use. But when it comes to the human body and the waste that comes out of us through the back end, to me, I look at it as work. The digestive system doesn't want to work nearly as hard as you want to work. So why, if we don't want to work hard to do certain things that are easy, why do we expect our digestive system to want to do that? Because we have the ability to chew. We got the saliva that's supposed to break down the food before it even gets to our stomach. So really, we're supposed to be liquefying food within our mouth before it even touches our stomach. But life's so busy nowadays, it's like the military. We get 30 minutes for lunch. The workforce and the health system work very hard to keep people unhealthy because they don't give them time to be healthy. Yeah. I remember even till this day, I have an issue with eating too fast. And the problem with eating too fast is if putting the substance in your mouth is the first part of digestion and you're not chewing properly, you're putting more work for your digestive system to do now. Yep. Which then caused a lot of issues within my colon as well. Until this day, I'm trying to reverse the indoctrination of only having 30 minutes to eat at work. I did it for 20 years. If you're late getting back on that product line, you're going to get written up. If you get written up so many times, you lose the money to even go buy the food that you want to go eat. So then you're screwed, so it's just like, there's all these things that society has thrown at us that we have to reverse. And so as I was building my body to intake less, output more, I noticed that as I went to raw foods and I made that switch to raw foods, which at the time I was drinking liquids, eating raw at noon, then eating cooked foods in the afternoon, I noticed that every time I eat cooked foods, I would have a lot of mucus start coming up, like almost to where I could almost asphyxiate on the mucus, like a whole lot. Wow. And that's when I knew that my body was like, all right, it's time to move on from this. And, I didn't have to force myself to stop going away from cooked foods. Like, you don't want to force yourself to do something. What you do is make subtle changes within the body as it gradually gets used to that. And like I said, vital adjustment, it will adjust to the things that are good for it and then want more of those things. And then you'll feel like you don't need as much to be able to work. Because a lot of times people talk about, well, how am I going to be able to work if I'm only eating fruit and salads? I need my strength and this, that, and the other. Well, that comes with the continuance and the practice of cleaning the body out, because your body still hasn't gotten to the place where it's completely eliminated all that gunk, that the energy levels haven't picked up, that your energy levels actually start picking up when you start cleaning out and start putting the right things in it, because you're truly getting energy now. Whereas before we call high carb, high dense foods energy, when every time I see people eat that, they conk out on the couch and they got the itis. And people even joke around about it. They say, I got the itis, but itis in itself, in definition, means inflammation. So we say it with our words without even thinking about it. You know what I'm saying? We're consenting to it. So in order to save yourself, you have to really get serious and take accountability and be okay with being wrong. Being like, oh, this might have been what I was shown, but I'm starting to find out that this might be wrong. This might be what I used to promote, but this ain't what it is no more, because now I've got this other information that makes more sense than the information I had before. And that's kind of how this journey works, is that you never really stay in one spot. You know what I'm saying? To be dogmatic within a place of evolution or continual change, you can't stay stuck in one thing. Things are going to change. Your outlook on things are going to change. Your perspective of things are going to change. The higher you go, the more bird's eye view you get. And they always say it's lonely at the top, and damn where they're right. Because when you start doing the right thing, when you start living the way that you're supposed to, nobody else knows who the hell you are. And it's like you're up there on top of that mountain like a monk looking down, and everybody's like, look at this dude. Like, what is he doing? You know what I'm saying? It gets lonely. And so it's very beneficial to surround yourself with people that have the same um, resonance as you do. You know, that you, if you're trying to, your goal is to try to be something, put those people around you. Like if you want to go plant based, if you want to go raw, you know, follow people that do raw foods, make friends with them, reach out, say, hey, what's up? You know, a lot of us are in families where they don't agree with this, and we're the only ones doing it, and it can be lonely. But because we have technology, because we have these podcasts and this information's coming out, it's no longer, it has to be a lonely world, that we can find people within a community that we feel comfortable in, or where we are at, meet ourselves at, and where they can meet us at, can be in a place that's going to help us be challenged, but also be comfortable, but also continue to drive us to be better or to do better, you know, and to continue to rise and to, you know, spiral upwards. And that's what, to me, this whole life is about. Is nature is always trying to survive, and it'll do anything to survive. And in that sense, you want to not get in its way. You want to go get with the flow. You want to get back into the cycle. And so I believe that's what's happening now within this day and age. I believe that there's something going on within the intellect and the minds of people that are shifting, because there's a lot of people out here that are starting to catch on now, that are healing a lot of things that doctors can't heal. And so it's really exciting, because you really don't have to be alone anymore. Everybody's starting to climb the mountain, you know, with everybody else. And so now when we get to the top, it don't have to be lonely. And it's not really lonely at the top. It's just that you're waiting for everybody else to join you. So it's just like, it gets a little lonely, but it's still nice up there.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, even it might be lonely, but I'm sure it's a nice feeling. You know, that level of ascension must be like priceless.
Absolutely.
But so you
Right.
go.
I mean, you can like zoom out and look at things that, oh, my bad.
No,
No,
go
I was just
ahead.
saying, like when you get to that top of the mountain, you can see things from a bird's eye view, so you get a bigger picture as to
No,
where, if you're at the base of the mountain, where you're just right there in your face. So
the
it's good.
perspective is definitely different
Mm-hmm.
when you start to raise your levels of ascension. You
Mm-hmm.
definitely start to see things differently. Uh, you dive deeper. You look. You know, it's all about perception. You change everything. So you go from
Mm-hmm.
plant based, then you go raw. And what about your
Mm-hmm.
fasting journey? I know you post a lot about your fasting, dry fasting, liquid fasting. Can
Mm-hmm.
you get into your fasting journey?
Absolutely. Um, Fasting first started with me within the religious aspects of fasting. Like I grew up in Christianity, so I believe that fasting was one of those things that was a modality to get closer to God, or to get God's attention. Like if you want to get God's attention, this is how you do it. Um, Perceived in a different way now, it still makes sense. I just have a different understanding of what it means now on a higher level. But I just, through the process of healing and my upbringing in religion, I kind of understood why these prophets and these sages would fast in order to get to God, because that's what it takes to access God within us in order to get to those higher planes of thought and intellect. Um, a lot of times within the Gnostic sects, and even in Kemet, ancient Kemet, they would require one to go through a 40-day fasting process before they were even eligible or considered to study in the mystery schools in ancient Kemet, because of the power they, it was a rites to passage to knowledge, because that's the way you gain knowledge. So naturally, the initiation would be one that was the catalyst for awakening, which is fasting. Every drug, every plant medicine that there is out there that helps open the mind is only a tool which is mimicking the natural process that comes with fasting. And you're actually cheating yourself out of the cleanse and reset that happens within the purest or the natural way of enlightenment. Not saying I'm downing plant medicines or those things, because some people need those to open their mind, but these aren't modalities that are to be used over and over and over and over again, because then you start using it like you did food, to try to feel something that can only be filled by you. It can't be filled by anything or cheesed by anything other than the sacrifice, which I believe is what the story of Christ is self-sacrifice, which is fasting. Fasting triggers something that's called autophagy, and autophagy means self-eating, and that's the body's way of killing off dead cells and tissues and regenerating and repairing cells within the body that are already there. Through this process, it's like the snake eating its tail. Through the sacrifice of self-elimination or self-sacrifice, one becomes reborn like Christ. As I had a Judas in my life, in that food tried to kill me, which was my Judas, it then awoken me up. It woke me up to the possibility of it doesn't have to be this bad, or I don't have to die. And although I was on my cross and I felt like I was getting ready to die, and I did die in the sense of a spiritual death, that as I fasted and died more to myself, the more the higher and higher I got. It's like a muscle. Every time my phone's about to die, I got 10%, but I'll keep going for now. But as I died to myself each time, my body got cleaner and cleaner, the temple got cleaner and cleaner. So I understood the story of Christ even better, being in the sense that it's more of it's a thing that's in the Kabbalah. Sorry, I get excited when I talk sometimes, and it just comes out really, really quick. So I get
It's
all
so
like
good.
behind. But but uh, but as the story of Christ, it says, take up your cross and carry it, and that is for each person to do. And that cross is that you take care of your temple, and it takes sacrifice in order to get from a place of bondage or in a place of temptation back to grace. And then through that sacrifice and through that denial to self, one can be reborn. And through the autophagy process, what it does is it goes through and it just really just wipes out all disease, all ailments. Each time you do this, it's a practice. It's not something that you just decide one day you're going to get up and do a 9-day dry fast. I incrementally worked myself up from like a day of dry fasting, and also was practicing intermittent fasting before I even did the day of dry fasting, where I was not eating up till noon, or I would only drink liquids up till noon. Those types of practices to get the body acclimated to receiving less, but also being able to still, you know, give, produce energy. So each time you do this, just like with the food, each time you get the body back to its natural state, it recognizes it and it remembers it each time. So you're actually setting up and creating new neural pathways within the body that are telling your body, hey, I don't need to put this much in to be able to get to put this much out. And then once it starts to basically like homeostasis, our bodies, if you look up the word homeostasis, it means like it literally just pretty much works on its own. Like it's self-sufficient, right? This body we call the human body is way more miraculous than we could ever even think of. But to get there and to achieve that takes work. And we've been kind of inundated with the easy button within the society, with everything being at the touch of a hand, and not